Alright, so this video is going to be a little bit shorter than what I would normally do with a longer list style video, because rather than talking about like 10 different Nintendo Switch 2 accessories, today I'm only going to be talking about one, and that would be this here, the Tomtoc carrying case for the Switch 2, Steam Deck, ROG Ally, or pretty much any other beefy handheld that you have in your collection. And in turn, this is kind of an addendum to that video that I did a few weeks back, and that's because my buddy Jason actually got me this as a late birthday gift, and like I mentioned in that accessories video for the Switch 2, one of my favorite accessories from that list of 10 was the Raven NeoGrip for the Switch 2, which made it a little bit more comfortable to hold. However, I was definitely regretting the fact that I did not buy the associated case that holds the Switch 2 when it actually has this attachment on it, and in turn, this actually solved that problem for me and allowed me to have a case where I can leave that on and still carry it around with me when needed. So that's what today's video is all about, is the Tomtoc case's features, all the different stuff that it can hold in a couple of different scenarios, and ultimately the pros and cons of using a case like this. But let's go ahead and kick this off by starting about the build quality. And right off the bat, as soon as you get this thing in hand, it definitely feels pretty heavy duty. And I wasn't really sure what the material was, but after checking out the description on the Amazon page, it's actually made of recycled plastic, but it definitely feels like a step up over other cases that I've had of this type. And based on its shape, it kind of feels like a tactical shaving kit back or something like that, I guess, except it's particularly well suited to storing a range of electronics, but especially when it comes to handheld gaming devices with that widescreen format. Again, like the Switch 2, Steam Deck, or Ally. And when it comes to features, this bag doesn't have like dozens of weird fringe features that make it stand out in some crazy kooky way or anything like that. It seems like they just really focused on the basics of what makes a good case. It has 3 zippered pockets, one on the exterior, one on the interior that has an elastic mesh, and then finally the main compartment where you store your bulkier items like the system itself, along with things like docks, mice, keyboards, controllers, glasses, or a Switch 1 with a Split Pad Pro attached if you'd like. And speaking of these zippered compartments, they all use YKK smooth pull zippers, which honestly you've probably heard YKK or seen it stamped on zippers your entire life, and this actually sent me down a bit of a rabbit trail as I started trying to research exactly what makes a YKK zipper good, and I don't know that I found any definitive proof of what makes their zippers so reliable, but I will say that in doing some research, apparently the company that makes these has been doing it for years and years and produces about half of the world's zippers, and each year they produce about 7 billion. So all of this is to say I'm not sure exactly what makes it feel so much better than other zippers that are not YKK, except to say that considering the fact they produce about 7 billion of these each year, they probably know what they're doing, and it certainly feels that way using them here. And with that brief history lesson on zippers out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to talking about the actual utility of these 3 different compartments, starting with the obvious, the main compartment, which is just incredibly well designed. Because from the top, it has a rigid, although removable W-shaped structure that perfectly contours to most handheld devices in that widescreen format. And then at the bottom of this compartment where your device rests, it has a ½ inch of foam, and then the portion where your screen actually faces the side of the bag, it has about a 1-inch thick foam pad. This creates a natural partition for just about any widescreen handheld gaming device to sit comfortably, and then it also creates a secondary portion of the main compartment where you can stash bulkier other physical items that you wouldn't want necessarily like banging up against the device itself. Again, this would be things like batteries, keyboards, mice, or anything else that you wouldn't want rubbing up against the device's screen or, maybe accidentally scratching the exterior. And when it comes to the external zippered pocket, it actually has a lot more space than you would expect. Normally these can be kind of shallow, but this actually does extend all the way to the bottom of the bag, and that's why I think it's actually ideal for holding things like a backup battery if you've got one that's slim enough, because that way you can easily just run a cable to it, and if you're in a spot where you'll be traveling for an extended period of time, and you want to make sure you can easily get to your backup battery to add more juice to your Switch 2, Steam Deck, Ally, or whatever, that's probably the most easily accessible way to do it. Which obviously is ideal if you need to keep power flowing to your device for an extended period of time, like on a long car ride or a flight or something like that, while still knowing the other essentials that you have are fairly close at hand in that main compartment. And when it comes to smaller items like SD cards, game key cards, I guess in the Switch 2's case, smaller cables and items like that, probably best suited to that interior mesh zippered pocket, especially considering it is an elastic pocket, meaning it has a little bit of give and can expand if you have to stuff a bunch of stuff in there like really quickly or something. And finally, the last feature I can really talk about when it comes to the Tomtoc case, and try saying that 5 times fast, I guess would be the shoulder strap that they include with it, which is also really high quality. It has a padded section to make sure it's not going to rub against your shoulder or anything like that when you're carrying it around, and then it has some really high quality plastic carabiners that feel like they're really sturdy, and also have swivel mounts for the connection point to keep it from getting tangled up, so yeah, definitely feeling solid. Now, when it came to testing the bag out and actually looking at what kind of stuff I could stuff in here for a Steam Deck scenario and a Switch 2 scenario, for the Steam Deck, I kind of treated it almost like a doctor's bag of sorts. And what I mean by that is, even though typically I don't take the Steam Deck a lot out of my house, whenever I do, occasionally what I will do is take it over to friends' houses, and usually I take a bunch of accompanying gear with me, and this is so I can help people get set up with their own Steam Deck experience, make sure I've got all the cables and the docks that I need to get connected to an external display so I could hook up somebody else's Steam Deck fairly easily, and naturally it held all of these accessories with no problem whatsoever, and with a little bit of room left over if I wanted to put like a ton of SD cards or something like that in there. And at no point did I feel like it was overstuffed or like it wouldn't adequately protect the bag in the case of a drop, again thanks largely to those padded sections that I mentioned earlier. So the fact that I could take the Steam Deck itself along with a dock, mouse, keyboard, and have all of that fit fairly comfortably in one small, easy to manage package was pretty nice. And when it comes to the Switch 2, I actually entertained two different scenarios for this. One would be kind of like an all-in-one bag where I could take the Switch 2 and the dock and all the accessories that I would need to like dock up at a friend's house for like a LAN party or something like that. And then the other scenario was an extended portable trip where I'm not necessarily taking all of that extra gear, but I'm still trying to make sure I have plenty of juice at my disposal to make an extended flight or a long car ride tolerable. And when it comes to that dock tall scenario, this bag can easily hold all the Switch 2's cables, a Pro Controller, and the Joy-Con grip, the dock, and of course the Switch 2 itself. So I would say this is definitely a good bag for trips to a friend's house for a LAN party, or where you need more gear than what you'd need for portable play, but in a fairly svelte profile. And when it comes to extended portable trips, again, like a long car ride or a flight where you know you're going to be predominantly in a portable play for an extended period of time, in this scenario, I had no trouble holding the system itself, a backup battery, a set of Vitcher glasses, and the Switch 2 with a grip on it, while naturally still having plenty of space for physical games given the small profile of Switch game cards and key cards. So now let's talk pros and cons for a second, because I think the thing that I really love most about this is probably the build quality. I'd seen people suggest this bag before, and I'd never really taken the leap on it or really had any familiarity with it or any hands-on time with it, but having now actually gotten it in hand, again, it feels really solid. Like, it does feel like a quality product. It's definitely a step up from some of the third-party cases that you would see online, but maybe not quite as high quality as something you would get from dbrand or something like that. It seems like it's a nice middle ground. I also definitely appreciate that it has a very simple design with only those three main compartments that I talked about. I've had bags that have tons and tons of pockets, and while that's great for separating a lot of stuff if you have a really nuanced setup, sometimes it's kind of annoying because you can't really remember where you put something, but here there's really only the three options, so I can definitely appreciate that kind of simplicity. And while we're on the subject of simplicity, something else I really like about it is just the aesthetics of the design. It's a simple black design that has a few hits of red, and that's about it. Again, it kind of feels like a tactical shaving cream bag, except it holds all of your niche electronics, and of course any portable game systems, again, that kind of have that widescreen format. As far as what I don't like about it, there's really not a ton that I have to really knock it for. I mean, it has plenty of space, it's fairly expansive for what it is, and I appreciate the simplicity of the design, but I do kind of wish they had like two handles up top or just a simpler where you could kind of hold it like this instead of only the shoulder option. But honestly, it sounds like they had a very specific design in mind to make like a really great shoulder bag for these types of devices, and they really nailed it. Plus, I mean, if I think about it, if they added handles to it, it might make the design a little bit busier and a little less streamlined, so I guess it's really just a matter of personal preference. So it's not a deal breaker or anything necessarily, but if you're somebody who wants the kind of flexibility where you're not just limited to the shoulder strap, this might not be the case for you, and you might want to look into something like the JSaw clamshell case that I mentioned previously, or maybe just one of the ones that's a little bit smaller and more form-fitting to the unit. But hey, if you're somebody who's on the go a lot and has a lot of different devices that you have to keep at the ready, or you just happen to have a lot of different accessories and you're not always sure what those are going to be depending on the scenario, this is definitely a great bag for exactly that purpose. Although I would also say that even if you're somebody who's not really taking your portable gaming devices out of the house all the time, if you just want one bag that's going to keep all of your extra accessories in one place until you need to take a trip like that, it's still pretty great for that too. And actually I'm going to be using this bag to keep all of my extra Switch 2 accessories in it, just for those moments when I know I'm going to need to travel, but I won't have to scramble and wonder where I left things like Joy-Con straps or the Joy-Con grip, extra backup batteries, and the like. But for whatever case option suits you best, I've got Amazon affiliate links below where you can pick up this bag or some of the other alternatives that I mentioned from that prior video as well. And when it comes to this bag, it goes for about 50 bucks, although it is on sale fairly regularly as well, and I think right now it might be 15 or 20% off. You have to check the link for that to be sure. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really solid case, and Jason, thank you again for the very thoughtful gift, and I look forward to keeping all of my Switch 2 accessories in it when I'm not running around with the system itself. But that's going to be it for this one, and even though I talk about a lot of games and accessories on this channel, I still don't know all of them, obviously, so if you you have any particular gear that you would recommend for something like the Steam Deck or Switch 2, please let me know in the comments below. As for what's coming up on the channel, I am actually working on a quick little video about Mario Paint, because I'm just so excited that it actually came to the Switch 2, and I cannot believe that I didn't think to consider that as a possibility, that they would just bring back the original one, but yeah, we'll talk more about that in the video whenever I make it. And on the topic of physical games, I'm also working on a video about some cheap but amazing physical Switch games that you can buy if you're into that kind of thing, so stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch videos here. It really does mean the world to me. Have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one.